Hey, and welcome to this birthday edition of the Whole Health of Rob Carney podcast. So, this episode is going to be a little bit different than normal. So, this one we have streamed live on Facebook. Myself and the guest, Zach Barney, the soulful poet, is back, and we shared some reflections, really thinking about reflecting on our past. I talk about the 26 things I learned at the age 26, as this is my 27th birthday. Talked about what my life looked like 10 years ago, where I foresee my life going 10 years from now, and just a lot of other fun conversation that I know that you'll enjoy. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this special episode. All right. Well, Zach, thank you for being here. Today is my 27th birthday.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to share some of the reflections I had for 26. And would love to hear from you. What's been going on in your world? How's life been? What you've been up to? And love for you to introduce the people, because I don't know if we're streaming on your page as well, if it's just on mine, but love to just hear a quick overview about you.
Yeah. It's always amazing to be in this space. So I actually more recently something that I went to a cacao ceremony this weekend, and it was so beautiful. Just in general, I feel so called to connect with community and expand my tribe. I feel like over the last few months, even though I've been indoors, I feel like I've definitely expanded the wolf pack, like that tribe. And yeah, at the moment I am working on creating a coaching program as well. So it's something we've talked about in the last few months also. And now it's just starting to really get I'm getting the momentum going, so that and the basis of this program is basically connecting people from taking people on the journey from their mind to their heart, and from their heart understanding how you can operate in the world from your heart, from that space. And we talked about it on the last recording with Paul Chak, saying okay, what would love do now?
Right.
And it's I feel like that question is central to what we all need to reflect on. And so, yeah, so through my journey, I feel like it's been a journey traveling through South America, learning more about myself, and also connecting to love on a deeper level, not just romantic love, but okay, how does love look like in the service that I'm providing with other people, with interactions with myself, with my family, with the wolf pack that I'm creating around me. And so yeah, that's pretty much been my journey of learning and remembering how to really be the embodiment of love, and always looking how can I embody truth as well, how can I go deeper into myself and understand what is my truth, what is true to me. And the truth is different for each person, but we can at least take the time to explore truth also.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I know that you said that you wanted to do a little interview on me, so I'd love to hear what questions you have. I love these impromptu interviews because I have no idea what the questions are coming. So I'd love for you to fire those off.
Yeah. I was just thinking about this. It's funny. I was journaling on this concept of looking back and reflecting. There's a lot of vulnerability that comes from reflecting on our journey, especially the past.
Right.
So the first one, first question I have for you. Yeah, we're switching roles now. So looking back on this past year for you, since September 2nd, 2019, what would you say are the top, let's say, three things that you learned over the last year of your life?
That's a good question. So I wrote down before this 26 things I learned at the age 26. So as I just turned 27 today, I wrote down 26 things, which I'd like to share a little bit later. But the first three that pop into my mind right now it's kind of what you're saying earlier, is just the importance of love, and not just intimate love, which has also been a big lesson for me this year, as I've been with my partner now for about a year, which has absolutely changed my life in more ways than I could have imagined. Just having someone, that loving and that caring and that supportive really allowed me to not only grow myself and express more love myself, but also, even my business has grown better because I have someone who is helping me in that venture and kind of giving me honest feedback. So I'm asking for unfiltered feedback. And that's with that regard. And then just in general, just the connectivity of everything, and just knowing that by me expressing love to, let's say, you, by this plant next to me, by the food I'll eat after this, like it can sound very woo woo that it's like, oh, everything's connected, but it's like, no, but if I'm expressing love and putting loving energy out into the world, that's only making the world a better place. And at the very least, it's making me feel better because I'm not stressing about things. So taking the time to really love and appreciate the little things, I think, is a big part of what I've learned this year. And that can be as simple as the fact that I can walk outside and, be on grass when I first wake up, like just little things that I can be connected to the earth and walk barefoot. And I can love the place where I'm at. So that's a big piece, is the piece of love, and, really trying to put love and intention into everything that I do and everyone I interact with. And I'd say number two would probably be, mindset is everything. Like, we can look at one situation and think of it any number of different ways, and it really comes down to how we choose to view that as how we're going to experience it. And even every time I have a call schedule, like this call schedule, there's always that little voice in my head. It's like, oh, do I really want to do that? Oh, it's going to take time. Like, and it's funny how that little voice in the head is always there, and it's always doubting, trying to tell us, like, maybe you shouldn't do that. Oh, maybe that's wasting your time. Maybe you spend time elsewhere. But then kind of recognizing that that voice in our heads is not us. That's not me. That voice in my head saying, oh, that call with Zach that you have in an hour, you have to do that call. Oh, you scheduled that. Then it's like, hold on, little voice. Like, that's not how I feel about this at all. I'm looking forward to this call. I've been looking forward to this call, and I'm excited to, interact with Zach and share this conversation with people. So mindset really can absolutely change everything. And I think just by changing our verbiage of I have to do something versus I get to do something, I think just fundamentally changes everything. And that's been a really big part of what I've been working on this past year, is changing the way I talk about the things I get to do as opposed to things I have to do. So that's definitely been a big piece. And I'd say the third one that pops in my head first is just collaboration and just working and connecting with other like-minded people. And I think that, coming into starting my own business about 2 years ago, I kind of had this mindset of like, oh, I can do anything by myself. I don't need to have anyone on my team or as a business partner, all these things. Like, I can do it myself. And well, that is true. I'm sure I could do everything by myself, but it'd be a lot less enjoyable, first of all. And two is just recognizing, like, it's so incredible, like, as I've been working on this children's book and Lovely Lessons, the online learning platform for kids, as I've been working with my buddy Brett. And, he's really knowledgeable about a lot of the business side of these things and the production side. And that's the side I hate. Like, I like the writing part. I like the coming up with the creative ideas. Like, that's where my energy is best served. And just really reflecting on that, I was like, wow, I'm so honored and grateful to share this space with Brett, that he is able to focus on things that he's better at than me, first of all, but also things that I just hate and would be procrastinating and not wanting to do, all the sides of the business side that aren't the parts that I enjoy. So, and yeah, now we have a revenue share, so I'm not getting 100% of the revenue for creating a book, but, to me, that's 100% worth it. Like, I'd much rather focus on the parts that I like and split the revenue with someone than, try to do everything myself and not even enjoy the process of doing it, because I'm doing things I don't like. So collaboration has been a huge part of that, and that kind of leads into community, which again, Ice and Iron was formed this past year, and that was the community I didn't know I needed. That once I had it and we were creating this, and all these people were coming in and saying, "Oh, I needed this too," and people, even just people saying, like, "I've been waiting for something like this for 3 years since I moved to this area." Like hearing those things just made me really recognize how important community is and collaboration, and how there's no real such thing as competition. If it's, again, that comes back to our mindset. Do we see it as competition, or we see it as an opportunity for collaboration? And I was actually watching this on Gaia TV. Bruce Lipton was talking. Dr. Bruce Lipton was talking about one of the myths of our life in general, life on this planet, is that survival of the fittest. But it's really not survival of the fittest. It's really survival of those who collaborate. Because if we're trying to kill each other, eventually we're going to kill each other. But if we learn to work together, we're going to amplify each other and bring our gifts together. So yeah, that kind of recap. Love is incredibly powerful, number one. Like, again, to levels that I couldn't even comprehend before this year. 2, mindset is everything. And 3, community and collaboration are invaluable.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with those 3 lessons as well. It sounds like just listening to you speak about your year, it sounds like you've developed so many awesome projects from the ground up, like from the foundation. Like, okay, here's a blank slate, and I'm just trying to, go paint my canvas and just go for it, which is really beautiful. I would say creativity may be like another thing that I see within what you're saying, like the ability to create community, create collaborations, creating the business, all these different things. I feel like show that you've been really creative in the last year also.
Well, yeah, that's a great point too, because it's we had talked about on our last recording we did together on the podcast, is just how, for much of my life after being in an art class in middle school where I was told, "Oh, your art is bad," and prior to that, I loved drawing and creating, and it was just like kind of like that childhood trauma in a sense, that I suppressed creativity because one teacher somewhere told me that my project wasn't good. And so this has really been, the creative outlet that's been suppressed in me for, I mean, I don't know how long it's been, how old we are in 6th, 7th grade, like 10 years or so, more than that, really allowing itself to flourish and come forward. And I think that, the business creation process and just the, community creating, the content creating, is that creativity that I enjoy. It's a form of art, and it's really shown me how much I love it, which has been, incredible. So thank you for pointing that out.
And I think that goes back to the first point too. Like, I think creating from a space of love, like you're creating and serving others because it's an expression um, of your love and care for other people, for the world also. And it's like when you share that with other people, it comes back to you. It's like, okay,
Right.
when you express it, it's like, oh yeah, I expressed this, and then it comes back naturally. Like it's like the law of the universe. Like as you give love, you also receive it. And it's like the more you give, it takes this moment of like, okay, you have to have the faith to just give, and
Right.
then when you do give, like it's like the universe just comes back and it's like, oh yeah, here you go, for here's like a reward for having that faith to just extend yourself as
Right.
well.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that too, is that, so I have my stress control 37 strategies to lower your stress ebook on Amazon. And so it's up there for like $3. So my cut of the commission is like $2.08 per copy that's sold. And so I sold 1 copy this month. And so I got a direct deposit for $2.08. And it wasn't like, oh, I only got $2.08. It was like, wow, cool. Someone got this and hopefully gained value from this. Like it was kind of like every time I see that, it's only $2, but it's not about the $2, but the fact like, wow, someone somewhere in the world bought this book this month, and hopefully this has impacted their life in a positive way. And it's pretty cool to see that it's not so much about the financial. Obviously, we need money to, survive and all that. And that's actually another big point of what I learned this year is that, money is not evil. It's just energy. It's just, that's all it is. It's an exchange of energy. Like you said, is if you're giving value and then you get something back, it's a give and receive. It's not like oh, I'm going to take money from you. It's in order to receive money, I have to give something first. So that's been a really big part of kind of my own breakdown of my mental barriers coming from a scarcity mindset as it relates to money over the past many years, is really breaking that down this year has, I think, been one of the biggest things that's allowed me to, have more money flow to me because I'm open to receiving it and I'm seeing it as a positive and an exchange of energy as opposed to a negative. Again, the whole money is the root of all evil, which is just a terrible mindset to live by. And we gotta attract what we want. So by giving out positive energy, we will receive positive energy returned.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Another thing that I noted down while I was listening to you is like that thing that you talked about, like the inner critic, that you said, that little voice in your
Right.
head. I call that like the inner critic, and we can pinpoint the inner critic in our lives also. Like literally, who's the person in your life that's your inner critic? Like in your family maybe.
Right.
And like if you find whoever that person is, then you can kind of play like with that character in your head, like create a name for your inner critic, and create a voice, like, okay, and have fun with it, because
Right.
then because when the critic is just like, oh yeah, that's just the inner critic that's showing up, then it's like, okay, I don't necessarily have to listen to what you're saying, but yeah, you're here, like you're talking to me and you're in my head, uh, but that detachment from that voice allows you to really like observe it.
Right.
And when you observe the voice, you can listen. Well, if you want to listen, you can listen to it
You
and like,
choose to listen or not.
because sometimes it does help, right?
Right.
Sometimes inner critic is trying to protect you as well from like situations that could be dangerous, or that could be risky. But it's just a voice, right? It's an opinion
Right.
that you can use when you're making decisions. I feel like it's very connected to the ego also.
Right.
It's like the ego wants to protect ourselves. Like it wants to say like, no, don't do that, don't do that. Like be safe behind this, this mask or this shield. And we can always take a time to just observe the inner critic, observe that voice in our head, and also have fun with it, because a lot of times it's like this serious voice, but if we can make it into like this funny voice that's just like playing around in our head, then we lighten that experience of, okay, making a choice or decision,
Right.
realizing that it's like, okay, yeah, decision, we always have decisions or choices, and we don't necessarily need to make everything so serious. So if we can lighten the voice in our mind, then it makes it a little bit easier to like come from a place of love versus like a place of like fear, like the critics saying like, don't do this, like,
Right.
no, protect yourself. So yeah,
Yeah.
finding, just like basically like finding that, like, and observing it.
Definitely. And yeah, I'd say even just being very mindful of the fact that we are not that voice in our head. That voice in our head isn't us. It's not who we are. A lot of that is just the conditioning that we've accepted as our own thoughts. And it's funny, there's times where, I'm about to do something or I am doing something and that voice comes up and it's like, oh, Rob, like this kind of sucks. You don't want to do that, like that. And I'm like, and then I recognize, like, oh, I see what's going on here. The little voice is trying to stop me from doing that because it's uncomfortable. Oh, that's going to be something where it's going to be challenging my ego, or oh, it's going to be something that maybe isn't safe by the little voice in my head standards. So sometimes it's kind of, you got to take that step back and be like, oh, I see you, little voice. Thank you for giving me that opinion, but I'm going to carry on and do what I was going to do And, when you want to come back and give me your opinion again, I'll listen, but I'm not always going to listen to your opinion. But just like you said, it can be very valuable because it is our ego is there to protect us. And I think that there is a lot of, dogma out there about, the ego is bad. We have to get rid of the ego. But, me personally, I think we just need to learn to live with the ego and learn to recognize, like, the ego, as you said, is there to protect us. And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing just because the ego is wanting, money, power, recognition, all these things that we deem as evil. If you go back to our primal roots, it's like, if you want to give influence, you need to have a position of power. If you want to, lead a tribe through whatever, the Amazon or, wherever we're going, you want to have that level of influence and that experience. And the ego doesn't like changes to itself that may knock it down. So a lot of times that we're humbling ourselves, the ego is going to fight that, like with meditation. Oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be working. I should be doing all these different things. So it's learning to, in my opinion, learning to coexist with that voice rather than trying to, destroy it.
Yeah, here's a little exercise that I've been just reflecting on recently. It's like I do make a lot of decisions and choices from my heart, and I have seen how that is one route. I mean, that's been my choice most of the time. I would say my method is like, okay, when I'm confused or don't know what to do, I just go straight to my heart. Like, what does my heart need? Like, what do I really need? And but you can do the other side of things. You can ask the other question, like, what does the ego want, and what does the ego need also? And this is kind of, it's interesting, like for people that are more spiritually inclined, like on the path, we likely try to resist the ego or resist that shadow or that desire, that temptation. um, but there's a lot to learn, like what you were saying. There's so much to learn from the other side of things too. So like when you have a difficult decision or choice that needs to be made, you can like ask yourself, like, what would the ego do in this situation? What would the heart do? And then if you're trying to find the balance, like, all right, what's the balance between those two sides? Because a lot of times we like to say, like, we like to create clarity by saying it's either one way or the other, but in reality it's like there's this in between as well. So
Right.
so it's like finding that center, that balance between the heart and the mind, like that ego, because then it's probably likely that that balance is likely something that will be the most beneficial.
Yeah, I love that you just brought that up about the middle ground, because I think that especially in the world we're currently living in, where everyone tends to say, I'm on this side or I'm on that side, and there's a lot of divisiveness. It's like, well, how about if you want to be here? What about here? What about the middle? Like, can we meet halfway? Can we say, oh, this side has some good ideas, this side has some good ideas? And again, it comes down to, feeling wanting to be identified by a title or whatever, just like we've talked about many occasions. Is like, I don't know what to call myself because I don't like to put myself in a little box. Like, it's tough for me to, like, when people ask, like, oh, like, what are you? What do you do? And it's like, well, I do this, 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 and this. And it's like, it's hard for me to say I am one title. So I think it does come down to, finding that middle ground in anything we're doing, everything we're doing, because just like, I mean, let's even use exercise. Exercise is great for us. But if I go right now and try to run 10 miles, that will be very bad for me. I don't run very often. When I do sprints. I like to do short distance. So if I go and try to run 10 miles, that would be terrible for me. So to me, if I go run maybe a mile right now, that would probably be okay. But it's
Mm.
really finding that balance and recognizing that anything in the extreme can be bad. You can drink too much water. You can drown yourself by drinking too much water. If you don't drink enough water, you'll be dehydrated and you can die from that too. So it's really about finding the balance, like you said, in anything we're doing. And I think that just in the current state of the world today, it's more important than ever to find balance and not be so, polarized by being attached to one title or one party or one identity, but just recognizing that everything has its pros and cons, and we can pick apart anything. We can pick apart water for all day. Like, oh, why doesn't it hydrate me more? Oh, I shouldn't have to drink this much water for my body to hydrate. It's like, well, how about the fact that water is perfect just how it is, and let's use that for what it's good for. So I think the balance is essential to, just living a healthy, happy lifestyle in every facet of life.
Yeah, it's so essential to what we're doing right now. Working with people
Right.
in the sense of like the only thing that we do as like, coaches or as even like lifestyle entrepreneurs, we're helping people find balance in their life, because a balanced life is going to be a healthy life as well.
Right.
It's going to be very full, like a whole life, like where you say whole health. You could also say like, balance is so key to wholeness. Like
Right.
you realize that you're not necessarily on one side or the other. You're just like in this middle, in this centeredness of, this wholeness, this
Right.
fulfilledness, because you're not extending yourself too much. And it's interesting also to think about like, I think Paul Chek also talks about this too. And he talks about dis-ease, like the
Yeah.
concept of, a dis-ease. It's just basically an imbalance,
Right.
right? You're not at ease with one part of your life. It's just not balanced, basically. And because of that, we get diseases like
Right.
that the healthcare system classifies as like, okay, this is like, this disease that you need this medicine or you need a vaccine. And that's where we're at in the moment. It's like we have so much imbalance, whether it's in our lifestyle or with our health. And we're in this like moment of dis-ease in the world.
Right.
And I see it as, in my mind, I see it as like the imbalance for myself. I saw it with like the heart and the mind. There's like a big imbalance, like disease there. Like thinking about in general how, yeah, we're so like driven with our mind, like the ego. And I think that's driven a big part of our like lifestyle, like how we live. We want control.
Right.
And our disease is like our inability to let go of those different attachments, like the
Right.
attachment to expectations, to money, to so many different things. We have these attachments, and that creates the disease. We don't want to let go of our old way of living,
Right.
basically.
Yeah, and one thing I think on that too is like we tend to have an attachment to an outcome that we think is what should happen or shouldn't happen. But it's rather than, projecting into the future, I think a lot of that comes down to being present. And like you said, in terms of the dis-ease, in my opinion, I believe much of that, potentially we could say all of it, stems from stress and fear being a form of stress. So if we're constantly under a state of chronic stress, which is what most people are living under these days, again, even just like staring at this screen right now, that is turning on our fight or flight mode. Because if you think about it, traditionally, if we're staring at something narrowly, that means we need to use energy because there's potentially a threat. So if we're staring at a screen for hours at a time, that's stimulating that cortisol release, those stress hormones, which are, again, putting us into that sympathetic nervous system. So if we are, we wake up, we watch the news, which is generally negative input, then we drive to work staring at the road, probably angry at our commute, then we sit at a desk, stare at a computer, drive home, stare at the road, get home, stare at the TV. And our whole lifestyle, for the most part, a lot of that is sedentary as well. A lot of people are stuck in this mode of stress. So even just taking 2 minutes every hour at work just closing the eyes, slowing down, taking your hands off the keyboard,
Yeah.
just breathing. I honestly believe if everyone did that, even just once an hour. I mean, I would like to say much more than that, but just to start, like 8 times a day if you're working an 8-hour shift, like that could fundamentally change everything. Or every time you get to a red light, it all has to be. It's just that one moment to check into, even if you relieve 1% of the stress, if you relieve 1% of the stress, that's going to make a difference over time. And so that brings me to the book Atomic Habits that you had recommended to me, which I've been loving. I think I've read this book faster than any book I've read in a while. He talks about getting 1% better every day. And if we get 1% better every day for 1 year, we're 37 times better than the first day we started. And that's crazy. I mean, you think about anything. Let's start with business growth. Would you like your business to be 30 times better, 37 times better in revenue than it was a year ago? Like, I think the answer anyone's going to say is yes. Would you like to be 30 times better at, squatting or bench pressing or something? Then yes, I think anyone would say yes to all those things. And a lot of it does come down to a lot of these small habits that we choose to embark on, whether that's closing our eyes, maybe that's even massaging our eyes. Like, how often has anyone massaged their eyes? Like, I try to at least a couple times a day massage around my eyes, because our eyes use so much energy, because we are so visually, what's the right word? Visually determined. That's not the right word.
Stimulated.
Yeah, visually stimulated and dependent. That's the word I'm looking for. Dependent on our eyesight as our primary source of input, where, we hear, we smell, we touch, all these different senses we have, but eyesight is what we use so much of our energy on. So just taking a break to relax the eyes, close the eyes, can just change everything. I think that's part of why, naps can be so beneficial. It's not really about the sleep per se. I mean, of course that helps, but a lot of times it's just closing your eyes for 20 minutes can make a huge difference to your energy.
Yeah, it's also a big part of my like meditation practice, and or anytime I do yoga also, it's like savasana. When you go into like the shavasana, it's just like poof, like
Right.
you're just allowing your whole body to rest,
Right.
even when you're awake. And that's so beautiful. So yeah, I had a few comments. The first one, so it's amazing to hear that you're enjoying Atomic Habits. That book really changed my life as well, and it made me realize, like, okay, so you have your why, right? In a lot of ways, your how is the habits that you create in your life. Like if you have this big mission or vision for yourself, um, basically it's like the habits are like what connects you. It allows you to manifest the things that you actually want to create. And even the habits can help you with, organizing your beliefs as well, like changing your beliefs, because it's almost like the process of embodying. And a lot of times today we're in our mind, but what we really need to do is like get back into the body and the heart by like embodying these different practices. And because now today we have so much information, we likely know everything already, in the sense that all the books are out there. There's podcasts, there's YouTube videos, there's courses, there's all the information's out there. And what we need to do is have practices or habits that allow us to, take that information and then, channel it into the world. So that was one thing that I was just reflecting on. And then, the other thing I was just reflecting on was just like another question for you also. So something that I found really helpful in the last, I would say, a couple of years also, but even right now in this moment, is basically looking back. So looking back to your past specifically. And it's something has been like sparked in myself, like understanding like, okay, how was I, 10 or 15 years ago,
Mm,
because I've definitely transformed. Like I've grown as a person
right.
since I was 15 years old, or 16 years old, or even say like 10 years old. Well, 10 years old, we're still like really children. But just thinking about when you're like in that teenage, like 16-year-old Rob,
Right.
like, so this is something interesting to go and understand. Like when you're like 16 years old, would you ever expected like to go on this like journey of transformation? And like how were you when you were 16 versus like how you are today?
Great question. So 16, so let's see, if I'm 27 now, so about 9 years ago is when I had my concussion. A little over 9 years ago, it was July of, July, it's a little over that. So that was really when I kind of started to reevaluate things. But me, let's say 10 years ago, I would be just turning 17, which means I'd be going to my junior year of high school. So that's 10 years ago. That's kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, so at that point, I was more focused on, sports, being an athlete. I was playing lacrosse and swimming. Those are my two big sports that I was best at. A lot of it too is, focus on just having fun with my friends. And that might have been, smoking weed, drinking, playing video games, staying up till 4 a.m. Like just,
Those were the days.
yeah, a lifestyle that is very far from what I live right now. But again, I don't look back and say, oh, that was bad. I shouldn't have done that. Oh, what about all the brain cells I killed doing that? No, it's like that allowed me to go to that extreme. Again, not that it was terribly extreme, but when you black out from drinking a number of times at 16 years old, and then you start to realize, all right, well, maybe that's not the amount that I want to be drinking, or you smoke and you get too high and it's like, oh, now I'm afraid to leave my basement or whatever it is. Like, it's like, all right, I don't want to do that either. And a lot of times we need that contrast to recognize now is like, I mean, now I barely drink, but if I do, last time I drank was some organic biodynamic red wine, which was really nice because that's again some of the highest quality. So if I'm going to drink now, it's going to be high quality. Um, and then if I smoke now, it's also going to be high quality. I mean, I don't know what I was getting for quality in high school, but I still do enjoy smoking at times. I think it helps with creativity, helps with relaxation, helps me be present. Again, but that's just like taking a hit or two of organic weed as opposed to, whatever I was smoking and smoking as much as I physically could. So that's 10 years ago, which is kind of crazy to think about, the amount of growth that's happened over 10 years. And then, that was just your focus or my focus at that age was, as I said, it was just about having fun. And it was kind of like that selfish, reckless fun, which I think is very common in teenage boys, which again, I'm not going to say it's a bad thing. It's just kind of, it is what it is. Like it's kind of part of my development and my growth. And I look back on that and kind of shake my head. Like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I survived that. Like, what was I thinking? And that's okay. And I don't hold any negativity towards that, but now it's like, as I said, it's just a very different lifestyle. But to answer your main question is, I think I always saw myself as doing something different and not the traditional way. I think that, you know, I landscaped for a lot of my summers in high school and college, and it was just kind of like, just the idea was to avoid a job. Like, it's basically I could work my own hours, work outside, work with plants and stuff. And, even during that time, I kind of became adverse to like weed killers, and just like a lot of people would like, oh, like spray this Roundup on those weeds. And just like part of me was like, there's something wrong here. And just like kind of like smelling it and breathing it, like I just kind of knew. I was like, this is not good. And that was before I knew any of the research about glyphosate even was or any of these things. But so it was like, I feel like a lot of those experiences kind of led me to this point, and the love for gardening and farming kind of stemmed with my landscaping. And after doing that for like, I want to say 4 summers, plus some other times here and there, it was like, landscaping is cool, but I'd much rather be growing food and not be mulching this and pulling out weeds, not even like they're called weeds because, the person who deems them a weed doesn't know what their value is. But people call dandelions weeds, and they're one of the most powerful medicines that we have available that grows wild in our area, my area, at least being in the Boston area. And so
Wow.
it's just kind of interesting to think like, a lot of it started probably around that time, about 10 years ago. And that's where, this whole journey of health and entrepreneurship started. And, I've sold Pokemon cards here and there. It was like I'd sell things on eBay, like kind of just always little things that, whatever I could do that would keep me from working a job, I was going to do it. And, or just like, how to get some extra cash and driving Lyft and anything I could do basically. So that was more recent than 10 years ago, but yeah. So at this point, it's definitely a very big contrast, which I think kind of, isn't abnormal. I think I had to be in that extreme to be now in this place.
Yeah, I think what will blow your mind now, right? Thinking about that was 10 years back, right? And now you're going forward 10 years as well. From where you're at, with your habits and everything that you're doing, imagine where you're going to be like 10 years from now, because you're already on this path of like, diving into mindset, holistic health, all these things. You've already, you've been on it for a while now also. But imagine like 10 years from now,
Right.
That's just amazing to think about. It's like, okay, in 10 years in the past, we transformed so much, but imagining into the future, 10
Right.
years, wow, it's like that feeling, it's like inside you, like, yeah, there's this confidence.
It's exciting. And definitely, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind when I think of that is just, freedom and impact. Those are kind of the first 2 words that comes to my head, is just having the freedom to, live wherever I want, be whoever I want, do whatever I want, but not from like a selfish place of like, oh, I have all this money, I can do whatever I want, but like from a place of like, again, coming back to money as currency, I've created value for the world, myself, my family, my friends, everyone, not everyone, as many people as I can, that now I can live a lifestyle that is most beneficial to my own growth and creativity, so I can continue to share more. So it's like, to me, I am envisioning, being on my own plot of land, probably at least 10, 15 acres at minimum, have like my own little homestead, definitely have a sauna in my house, have an ice bath in my house, like have all my little wellness goodies that help me be healthier, happier, and, make me feel better so that I can create more. And, having this, I see this lovely lessons, the online platform for children, being a way that is going to continue to grow and expand, as we haven't even officially launched it yet. That will be coming out in a couple of weeks. But it's like seeing that as just another way for parents to teach their kids in a holistic way that's, kind of benefiting both the parents and the kids. And then obviously things like Ice and Iron, becoming kind of like a name brand in terms of at least the New England area, potentially beyond that, where we can go to people, and give them wellness retreats at their property or wherever they want to do it, and just make that more of a regular thing that people can, instead of throwing a party where they're drinking and eating pizza and, shitty food, it's like, what if we replace that with a wellness party that people are having fun? We're bringing organic food, preferably local food, green juices, all these things that, it's just kind of taking a paradigm that exists and just kind of taking that same thing with like me when I was 17 years old, taking that same thing of, having fun, doing all these things, but now making it, instead of being a party for destruction and drinking, but now switching it to a wellness party. And same thing with like online learning. Oh, parents get pissed that their kids are on their iPads all day. All right, well, how about we make this educational now that they're learning valuable skills? So kind of taking existing paradigms and making them easier. And same things with like the organic superfoods I work with, like making that like a regular thing for people. It's like, all right, look, I don't have time to juice. It's like, all right, so get this organic, non-GMO green juice delivered to your doorstep. You mix it with water. It still has all the live enzymes. Like just little things like that that are just making people's lives healthier, easier, happier, more sustainable, and just doing that from a place that is just continuously evolving. And, you know, in 10 years from now, I hope to be a father. So it's like, that's definitely, it's scary. Like the thought of being a parent is freaking terrifying. Like
responsibility.
Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility. And then raising another small human or multiple small humans is scary, but it's also, you know, it's been something that I've always wanted to do. Like I've always wanted to be a father, and just, you know, I love working with kids, and, you know, I'm excited for that time to come. So I definitely think that will be in the next 10 years. And yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that I'm very excited for. And even just, you know, a lot of these things I mentioned, I think will be a lot sooner than 10 years. I think they may be within 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Somewhere in that time frame, I think is more likely. But again, it's hard to tell. 10 years in the future, like think of how much has changed in the past 10 years. 10 years in the future is exciting. A lot to think about.
Just in the year, how much has changed in 1
Right,
year?
exactly.
I think I also think that it's amazing. Just like what I'm learning is like everything comes with patience. Like everything develops with patience,
Right.
as well. So it's like, you know what you're doing now. This is what you'll learn from Untitled Habits too. It's like a lot of times we try to rush things that if we just gave it that space to do it over a longer period of time, it's going to happen.
Right.
If you create the habits for it, it's going to happen. Like if you have a meditation practice where you're doing it every single day, and you know, even if it's 30 minutes, eventually you're going to hit these moments of like enlightenment or like liberation for yourself, personal liberation, where you just feel happier.
Right.
And it's the same with any other habit, with your business. Imagine the things that you're creating right now, as you do it for the next 10 years, how big of a difference that's going to make in your life. Another guy that talks about this is Jerzy Gregorick. He was actually Tim Ferriss's coach and fitness trainer for a while. But Jerzy Gregorick, he's a Stoic philosopher also. He talks about this, the fact that everything takes time. Especially if you want to become a master, like if you want to get really, really good at what you're doing, it's going to take not just a year. It takes 5 years, 10 years. And so if we look at things with that perspective of what we're doing, we're serving people, we're helping people, but our ability to help others just multiplies over 10 years.
Right.
When we're doing it every single day, and we have that experience, we have that confidence to know okay, yeah, this person needs this thing, this person needs this, and it's really fast. Like we're faster thinking, we're able to make decisions faster because we've had the experience of oh yeah, I've been here. And I think that's something that we forget to think about, especially with our generation of instant gratification, things fast. But yeah, 10 years from now, yeah, I see myself living a similar life as well that I'm already living. It's just more, I would say the fulfillment would be greater of doing the same, similar things, but expanding the awareness around it. Like what you were saying, eating better, meaning eating from the source, eating from a farm or my own garden, and community. But for me, everything's online at the moment. I see it as okay, no, there's a physical community as well.
Right.
Nature, really living in alignment with nature, and not afraid of, not afraid of nature, like just living with it, like having construction, like building with natural principles, and farming, and with other people, like doing everything together with other people, and having spiritual practices where you get together and it's just a normal thing to like to have fun and connect with each other. And
Absolutely.
mm,
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I feel too. Is as you said, very similar to what I'm doing now, but just doing it better, more effectively, more efficiently, more sustainably, more mindfully. And I think that that's kind of where, at least for the next few years, I see myself going is, doing things similarly to how I am now, but just better and just improving upon the skills. I feel like I have a pretty solid foundation of, what I want my life to be, some of the habits I have. Obviously, there's still always improvement on those. Um, and even just kind of an example that I don't want to go too far from the tangent, but just I found myself like, I'm eating that like 90+% organic. Of course, there's still times where, I'm human. I'm not perfect. But I found myself that I was eating less whole foods because I was saying, oh, this snack I bought is organic. But then that started as one snack, and then all of a sudden it became 3 snacks a day. And yeah, it's organic, it's high quality, but it's all processed food. And so I kind of found myself being very aware of that a few weeks ago. That I was like, so when I'm going for a snack now, rather than grabbing an apple or a nectarine or some other fruit or vegetable, I'm grabbing for like the chickpea puffs or something like that. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, it's organic and it's better than most other snacks on the market. But at the end of the day, it's like I still would be better off eating a whole food. Um, but yeah, on that note, I want to share the 26 reflections that
yeah, go for
26
it.
times I learned at 26. And then um, if you'd like to either stop me after I read one and we can talk about it, or at the end if you want to dive into any of them, but I'll just
Just
start.
go. I want you to just go for it, and then afterwards I'll reflect also.
Okay, cool. All right. So the first one, so again, these are things that I just wrote down, kind of just letting things flow out of me. So I'm actually going to put out a post later. So I probably will refine this a bit more. But this is kind of the first draft. So number one, mindset is life. Our life is determined by our mindset. How we view things is how we experience things. Number two, community is essential. And we kind of already touched on that, community collaboration. Three, local politicians are just as, if not more important than our national politicians. Kind of recognizing all that's been happening over the past 6 months is that a lot of it comes down to how the local politicians are treating this thing. Four, love can change your life in more ways that you can imagine. We already talked about that. Five, dogs are amazing. It's gut-wrenching to lose a furry friend. So we've had to put down our 14-plus-year-old dog, who was my first dog this year, which was extremely difficult. But, part of it was also that relief because he was definitely in pain. So there's a lot of sadness, but it was also kind of recognizing, that death can also be beautiful, and just kind of not being afraid of death, but like accepting it for what it is. Because there's a while that we were resisting and kind of pushing off, like, oh, we had the date scheduled that we are going to have him put down, and then we pushed it back a couple of weeks, and then it was like, all right, he is suffering so much, we cannot selfishly hold on to his life for our sake. And just kind of recognizing like there was so much crying, but it was like, it was a nice release. And I think that was, needed
Oh,
and effective.
that's so that one's so relevant to what's going on in the world. I just wanted to throw that
Yeah, thank you. So number 6, be very mindful of how large companies are using our data. So obviously things like Google, Apple, Microsoft, all these giant monopolies, generally do not have our best interest in mind as a consumer. A lot of it's geared towards the ad people, that they're selling things to, that they're making money off of, because a lot of the services we use are free. So just being very aware of the data that they are using and collecting is not as private as we may think it is. Number 7, support small and local businesses at all costs, even if it's less convenient and costs more. So that was, a tough one for me. Again, having been in a place of scarcity as it relates to finances many years before, and then this year, kind of just being like, look, even if I don't feel like I can afford this, I'm going to pay this because I think it's the right thing to do, as opposed to paying for Whole Foods, which is owned by Amazon, which is just a freaking Goliath of a company. Recognizing, all right, yeah, I'm probably going to pay like potentially 50% more for what would be deemed the same thing, but it's actually from a local source. So even though it's just, let's use kale, for instance, it may cost 50% more, like $4 a bushel as opposed to $2 for organic kale, but it's local and it's supporting people. And yeah, I might have to drive 35 minutes opposed to 15, but I'll do that because I know that in my heart that that's the right thing to do. Number 8, as we kind of talked about, I can do anything on my own, but it's much more fun together. Number 9, collaboration allows me to focus more on what I enjoy and less on what I don't. 10, I am exactly where I need to be. 11, fear and stress are perhaps the biggest epidemic of our country. 12, I love working, but must learn to balance that with relaxation, fun, and play. 13, I would rather live on the streets pursuing my dreams and live a life full of money doing a job I hate. 14, I really love the power shake, and at this point it probably takes up a lot of the fuel in my body. 15, technology is incredibly powerful, but it is up to us to decide whether we want to use it for good, as in the betterment of society and individual lives, or for selfish control and corporate greed. 16, there's always a positive / an opportunity to grow, even in the darkest corners. And sometimes it may take some time to recognize that and see that, and maybe in hindsight that we recognize that. But there's always a positive we can draw from anything. 17, never settle for less than the best. So that can mean, any area of our life that, I'm not going to settle for a shitty job that's not paying me enough or giving me the right benefits, or I'm not going to settle for a relationship, whether that's intimate, friendship, whatever, that's not serving me at my highest level and their highest level. 18, we, all. That's a Paul Chek principle. So, and again, I've known this, but I feel like I've really learned to embody this year. So we, all being, we have to focus on ourselves first, the I, before we can focus on the we, before we can focus on the all. So we try to focus on the all, which is, you see many people doing, whether that's in politics or companies or whatever, that they show focus on trying to serve others, that they're sometimes the most unhealthy people with the most dysfunctional relationships because they're focusing on the all before the I and the we. So I've really recognized that focusing on the I is not selfish. It's not, egotistical. It's essential. And for me to best serve the we, my friends, my partner, my family, I need to focus on the I first and then once I can serve the we, I can serve the all. 19, money's energy, it is not evil. We kind of touched on that already. 20, the only thing stopping me from moving on or moving forward is the voice in my head. So we already touched on that a bit as well. 21, I am not the voice in my head, and I can change that voice to be more supportive than self-limiting. And we already kind of touched on that as well. 22, there's no such thing as overnight success. The journey before success just isn't as glorious, and we often don't see the journey there. I think it's very easy for us to see, this person became a millionaire overnight, or this person created this successful company in 2 weeks, but it's like you don't see the years and the hours that were put in before that. Or like with a sports athlete, this guy became a sensation overnight. It's like, no, he probably shot 30,000 free throws this past year and dribbled 6 hours a day. But no one we often don't talk about that because it's not as fun of a story. 23. Who I am and what I do when no one is watching is often more important than what people see of me on social media. And that, I think, is an important one, that we tend to, try to project the best parts of ourselves on social media, which, can be fine and dandy, but what we do outside of that is often more important. 24. There is never a reason to attack, blame, or shame anyone. We have no idea what their life is or what they've been through. And I think that's been a lesson that has been very apparent to me as of lately, as there's a lot of, blaming, shaming, and attacking going on in the world right now that, we just need to come from a place of compassion and understanding and open-mindedness and love, as opposed to attacking. And again, kind of comes back to the whole side thing that we talked about earlier is, what if we meet them halfway? What if we listen to their story, understand where they're coming from, and lead from that place? Number 25, accept what is and live in the moment. So I feel, again, it's very easy to project into the future or dwell in the past. And I feel that that's often been a challenge for me throughout my life, is kind of, in my early years, probably about 10 years ago, is when we're in high school and we're so worried about what everyone thinks about us. And you kind of think, oh, I probably said that stupid thing. Oh, that I said that thing to that girl, now she probably doesn't like me, or all these little stories we make up in our head, and then dwelling on that. And then accepting that as part of our identity is, oh, I'm someone who can't communicate well because I said this one thing that one time, or, oh, I'll never be that because I'm not X or Y or whatever. So living in the moment has been huge. I think disconnecting from the phone has been a really big part of that, and being very mindful of my social media consumption. And at 26, I am. That's it. I am. Just like we talked about earlier. It's tough to put a label on myself, I find. And just, even right now where it's like I could say I am Rob Carney, but I'm also Whole Health Connections. I'm also part of Ice and Iron. I'm also part of, Lovely Lessons. I'm also part of my family. And I feel like it's hard to say what I am. And I was listening to Paul Chek and Zach Bush, and he just talks about I am. Because I'm everything. I'm part of you. You're part of me. We're all connected. I'm part of this plant. I'm part of this water. As I'm about to drink this water, if you don't believe that is part of me, it's about to become part of me. So I think just recognizing that if I view the fact that I am everything and everyone, that I will then treat people and treat everything with reverence and respect and love, that I think I generally would anyway. But in the few times that I find myself, projecting hate onto someone or something or some situation, is, recognizing that that's a part of me. And especially there's an exercise I did a while back that was, choose someone that's bothering you in your life and write down all the characteristics of the person that's bothering you. And then the second part of that you don't see till after you finish that is, how many of those are things that you do? And the answer was 95% of those things I wrote down that I didn't like about that person were things exactly that I did myself. So I think we often project our shadows and things that we don't like about ourselves onto other people. And then that makes it easier to get angry with them as opposed to confronting ourselves about that. So 26, I am.
Yeah, I definitely want to go a little bit deeper on this for sure. Just the part that you said about the judgment and the shame that we create from our past as well. Like, that's something I've been reflecting on. It's like, I think it's also key to connecting with people. Like when you're saying about, you want to collaborate, you want to create community. It's like, how do you do that? You have to build trust. And like, how do you build trust? So by being vulnerable, by being able to express your truth, like how your truth. and speak from the heart, like speak honestly. And I still see like I know there's judgment around myself because I know in the past I didn't speak honestly. I didn't speak from the heart. I didn't communicate exactly how I felt growing up, like 10 years ago. And I could definitely relate to that because, like what you're saying, I am, is because, I saw this like giant separation. Like it was so big for me. And it wasn't until like I started doing this for myself, like going further on my journey, that I realized like, wow, like I changed a lot as well. And because of that, yeah, I don't see as much separation. But I do my challenge now is to have compassion for people that are dealing with their own like challenges, like their own suffering, basically.
Right. Yeah, I want to just dive in there real quick and just mention, like you said, that now you have a new challenge. And I think it's important to note that we're never going to have a life of no problems or no challenges. I think there's a belief that it's like, oh, I work this job and I retire and then I just live this perfect life that I sleep on a feather bed and get fed grapes all day. And it's like, that life doesn't exist. So we need to just focus on upgrading our problems. Like your current challenge, we can call it a problem, is that you're focusing on having more compassion for people and listening to people. That's a really good place to be because you're already doing it well. You're just looking to do it better. So I think that it's important to note that we will never have a life of no problems. And that can sound terrible on its most shallow level, but it's like, when you think of it, it's like, we wouldn't even want that. We wouldn't want a life of no problems or no stress, because it's like I just did a podcast with my colleague Eric McMullen talking about Hormesis, which is basically using acute stress to benefit us, whether it's ice baths, saunas, fasting, exercise, whatever it is. So I think it's important to note that we don't want a life of no problems. We just want to choose the challenges and the problems that we're working on rather than letting them choose us.
Yeah, it's like that concept of, the challenge is either we dwell on the challenge or we use it as an opportunity for our
Right.
own growth. And so, if we use it as an opportunity for growth, then that changes the whole perspective. But at the same time, so this is the part, right? Um, to understand that people are in those two sides, right? Like what you were saying, fear or love, right? Fear and stress versus like love and, I would say, like relaxation almost. So
I'd say love and presence. I'd even say
presence, yeah,
presence.
presence too. I feel like, yeah, when you're focused, when you're relaxed, you're also present.
True.
And so yeah, so there's like those two sides, right? And if you go to one side, you just realize that the other side exists. So if you're on fear and stress, realize that love and presence still exist. If you're in love and presence, understand like there's still fear and stress in the world. And that's something that I'm learning more and more in my journey. It's like, just because I feel good, right, doesn't mean that other people are feeling the same way. Because I'm feeling like I'm taking care of myself doesn't mean that everyone else is also taking care of themselves. And so to have not judgment for those people anymore, and have more just compassion and understanding and empathy for those people and their challenges. And that's something that I'm learning more and more of, not like saying like, okay, you're wrong, like I'm going to judge you and, say like, okay, change. I'm not forcing other people to change anymore. I'm just like listening and observing, like,
Right.
okay, you said this out of fear and stress. And because of that, I have compassion for you.
Right.
Whatever you're going through, whatever challenge you're going through, um, I'm not going to say that it's not real, right? Because then that
Right.
would be lacking. That would be incompassionate to say like, yeah, everything's okay. Just act like everything's all right. But to go from a standpoint of like, yeah, you're going through something that's really challenging, and to understand that person and not try to judge or change them
Right.
specifically. And that's where like my part of like my journey is, because I realized that all the change, like I was reflecting on this recently, all the changes I went through were all by myself, in the sense that like I had to make the choice. No one else was like saying like you have to change, but the only person that was changing and making those choices was myself. Like, you know, that's good. That goes back to like the I we all, the I first, and the big. I call it the big self,
Mm.
not the little self like the ego
Right.
self, but like, yeah, the big self is God.
Mm.
Like we all like how you said I am, right?
Right.
It's like we all are like connected to like that source energy, that divinity. So when we're taking care of the big self, we're taking care already of like everyone else around us, and you know, that the entire creation.
Absolutely. Yeah. One thing that just brought up for me about the change and compassion and listening is that my friend Jordan, one of the co-founders of Ice and Iron, is that one thing he always says that he tries to avoid saying is "I know," because
Mm-hmm.
as soon as someone says "I know," like if you're saying "Oh, yada yada yada," this "Oh, I know," you can tell that they're not open to listening to another perspective. And so it's something that as I hang out with him a lot, I find myself saying, like, someone says, "Oh, like you should," "Oh, I know." And it's like, "Oh, really? Do you know?" Like, do you? Like, what if I'm trying to tell you a better way? So I think that that's a part that I'm trying to be very mindful of, is when I say I know, because that immediately closes me off to learning about any other perspective or any other way of being or doing. And so it just really does come down. A lot of life is, as we said, our mindset and the words we use, the way we describe things. Because if someone says, "Oh, like you could get into that ice bath this way," "Oh, I know." Or it's like, "Oh, cool. What else? What else could I do?" Those are like, or just saying, "Oh, thank you," expressing gratitude. "Thank you for sharing that with me," as opposed to saying, "I know." Like, it's just a lot of these little things, and kind of come back to like, "Oh, I have to do this," versus "I get to do this." So I just want to come full circle with all this. I think we've been going for a while now, which has been
Yeah.
awesome. So I just want to, reflect on, this past year, and just say that it's been an incredible journey. And I'm incredibly grateful to have met people like you, you yourself, especially as an individual. Like, it's been great to connect with you, connect with everyone that's been a part of my journey this past year, new and old. And I feel like it's crazy to think back a year ago is I had never spoken to you in my life. I didn't even know you existed. I didn't know that, like, a lot of people exist. A year ago, ice and iron wasn't a thing. A year ago, I was, still wasn't making money with my business. I was still losing money. And it's kind of crazy to really reflect on the past year and just all the people and events that have occurred that have really allowed me to, grow and expand and connect. So, as we said earlier, there's a lot of craziness going on in the world right now, but if we can learn to use this as an opportunity to grow and change, because clearly there's change that is needed in the world right now. So if we can use this as an opportunity to grow, I think we can all make this next year a hell of a lot better than this past year was. And that's not to say this year was bad. It just was. This is what it was. And so instead of labeling it as good or bad, like, this is what it was. So let's make this next year better. And let's continue to make the year after that better, and just constantly improve and enjoy the whole process. So I want to thank you for being here today, and always showing up and always creating great space for us to communicate. So yeah, my friend, thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to a full year together this year of great conversations and all that. So thank you, my friend, and much love and appreciation. And thank you, everyone, for listening, and thank you for your continued support.
Oh, yeah, it's an honor to be here and in this transformational period of time with you and with the entire wolf pack and community that I think we're both creating. It's just so beautiful. And yeah, I can feel the gratitude like vibrating within me. It's like amazing.
It is.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an honor to be connected with you as well. And just wishing you another year filled of like growth, love, more presence, and beautiful moments with your family, with your partner, with your community as well. I think that's like all we can really ask for is like more moments and to be present with with ourselves and with the people we love. So just wanted to give you a little birthday wish, and yeah, I hope it's a beautiful day as well.
Awesome, my friend. Thank you again so much. Appreciate you. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Thank you, everyone, and have a beautiful day and a beautiful year. Maybe we'll have to do this. This will be a yearly thing. We'll have a birthday reflection. So thank you, Zach. Thank you for listening, everyone. Peace. Thank you for listening to this birthday edition of the Whole Health of Rob Carney podcast with our guest, Zach Barney. So you can find Zach on Instagram at The Soulful Poet. If you haven't listened to our last episode yet, please go back and listen to that one. Zach really goes more into his story, and we hear a lot about all the incredible stuff Zach has done as a consciousness coach, a poet, a psychonaut, and has been living and traveling around South America for the past 5 years. So for my birthday, I would love so much for you to check us out on Instagram on the new platform I'm creating for our children called Lovely Lessons. So you can find us on Instagram at lovely.lessons and check it out. We're going to have our first children's book, myself and Brett Melman, published out by the end of this month. We're going to have online learning modules for our kids based around holistic health, mindfulness, all that great stuff to really help raise our children in an environment that needs more healthy, happy, and sustainable people and practices. So I would so very much appreciate if you could check that out on Instagram. Again, that's lovely.lessons. And very soon our website, lovelylessons.com, will be up and live. So I would love for you to check that out as well. And if you haven't already liked and subscribed to this podcast, I would so very much appreciate it if you could do that for me. And also check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Whole Health Connections. And if you're local in the Boston area, would love for you to check out Ice and Iron at ice_and_iron on Instagram for our wellness meetups that we do every month. So I'm so incredibly grateful for all the loving support that you have all given me and shared with me over the past year. And I can't even put into words how grateful and excited I am for what's to come. So thank you again for listening. Thank you for your continued support. Much love. Have a beautiful day.